Hey guys, what's up? It is week 409. Let's hop into the reviews. The first one up is Hokuriku Proxy War. This is from Radiance Films. This is from 1977. This is from legendary Japanese director Kinji Fukasaku, who directed numerous films including Battle Royale, Green Slime, Legend of the Eight Warriors. Just a lot of great films. A bunch of Yakuza films as well. Cops and Thugs. What is that? Dogman. Dogman, I think it is, the one with Sonny Chiba. He directed a slew of movies, and this was one of his best. I love his work, so let's hop into this one. Now, this is a Toei picture, and this is, I believe, Toei's last Yakuza film. It's most certainly Kinji Fukasaku's last Yakuza film, for good reason. But this follows a story of kind of he's a really intense kind of a gangster. And there's a lot of outside influences coming to their city, their little village and everything, and they do their own certain way. They do the way they want to do it and everything, and there's a lot of outside influencers, this kind of group that's part of the big Yakuza syndicate, and they're kind of muscling in. It's played by Sonny Chiba. He is a wild man in this. He's got these sunglasses. He's just an intense villain, and he's kind of crazy. So he's kind of muscling in and taking a lot of the territory. And it's a lot of bureaucracy and stuff like that, but you get to know a lot of the characters. There's also a romantic angle with our lead here, who Matsumura, I think, is the actor. He's in tons of stuff. He's in 213 movies. He's in Cops and Thugs. He's in a lot of films. He's in some Battles Without Honor and Humanity, also by Fukasaku. So this guy's in tons of stuff, and he's a fantastic actor in this. Fantastic performance in this film as the lead. And basically what happens is he starts to stand up to a lot of people he shouldn't. In the very beginning, it opens up with the way they used to handle business. The local village boss, the local Yakuza leaders kind of from this village is buried down to his head. You'll see that on the cover here. This is what they do to people. And he is driving a Jeep around him as he's like freezing to death, all right by his head, and spraying everything like that until he gets basically the okay to get what he is due. He was ripped off something, and he wants to run this boat race, which is a very, it brings in a lot of cash for the Yakuza and everything, and he thinks he should have the right to run it and operate it because of something that was promised to him a long time ago. After doing this puts a lot of, a bullseye on his back, in other words, but a lot of the people that start off as his enemies or start off as his friends don't necessarily become that. And I know you're saying this sounds a lot like a lot of typical Yakuza movies with too many characters, but it's beautiful because it's in like a cold location. It's a little different. It's based on a true story. Based on a true Yakuza person in real life. And I'll tell you the end when I get to the features, what happens and why it's so interesting and why it's a little bit different from the other Yakuza movies. That kind of blows your mind. Although the Battles Without Honor movies, I think, were originally also based on a true character as well. But as it progresses, we see this guy just go head-to-head with all sorts of people, and the enemies change. You think they're after this certain character, but things change. There's a great shootout, kind of run-for-your-life scene inside of a coffee shop kind of deal, which is really well done. The fighting is intense. Now, it doesn't have the biggest kill count, but there is action. It is intense, and when the action does happen, it's just running through the areas, fighting for your life with swords and guns, and it's just wonderful. The ending has a scene where I literally said, "Oh shit." I literally said, "Oh shit," during the ending. Because they keep teasing this thing the whole time throughout the entire movie, and it eventually does happen, and I didn't expect it to. But the love angle is also interesting because we have the two actually actors from last week. I covered a movie called A Certain Killer, and the female lead in that and the other Yakuza guy in that film, I cannot think of their names. This is where it would come in handy with a better memory and pronunciation of Japanese names, are both in this. And the actress is a bigger actress, and she's great in this. And she plays kind of like a mistress to the Yakuza. She runs a waitress, a hostess kind of deal, but she's not like, I don't want to call her like, she's not like a prostitute level. She's very kind of classy, but she works with the Yakuza and serves them and things like that at the bar. But she jumps around from person to person, which is really kind of like, at first you think she's such a good character, a good person, and then you're like, oh shit, she's kind of just jumping around. And it complicates things because our lead here starts a relationship with her sister. But I just love this. And there's something, because this is based on true character, true person, that when the lead actor went and met him, He always wanted to do that. So there's a point every time like there's some intense situation, he kind of rocks back and forth. And I guess that's what the real guy was doing. And that's why he does it. And it just creates an intense situation. It's just, this guy is a wild, wild animal. And I love his performance. I love his character. As we get into special features, which are even more interesting than the movie. And I love this movie. This is one of my favorites from this director. And it didn't do well when it came out. It's not really a known entity as far as his films are concerned on the big, it's not one of his main big features that everybody knows, really. So we have new interviews with writer Koji Takadaga and actress Yoko Takahashi, plus Akihiro Ito on the real-life copycat murder case, booklet with newly translated archival writings on the film. So all three of these features paint a really interesting story. We have our actress in here who got the role because basically they were changing the character in Kinji opened the book and said she looks good. She got the role. She did a really good job. She kind of plays the character that's not really like your pretty lead type, Yakuza like woman that pretties herself up. She's kind of like a country, I would say for a bumpkin kind of deal, but she's really a great character. And the writer of the movie talks about what happened to the real guy in real life, and it's really kind of tragic because after this movie came out, kind of like was that movie with about Whitey Bulger, right? Where he kind of was murdered after, so people were like, oh, they saw that fucking movie. It kind of reminded him of Black Masses, or what is it? But the lead guy here, so he was murdered shortly after in the cafe where there's an attempt on his life in the film. And when we get to the writer, goes over all this and talks about how he always had wrote for females because it's a very important part of storytelling, and it's a very, how he says it is very, intriguing. And he also mentions how this guy died and it kind of changed his outlook and how it changed Kinji Fukasaku's outlook on all this kind of shit, and how and then we get into the writer who wrote a book about it in 2014 about the real life movie and the case, but Toei wouldn't talk about it because they have a no Yakuza kind of tie-in, so they no longer were making Yakuza movies, and they kind of just separated themselves after this happened for obvious reasons. But he talks about the underlings of this guy who went out to get revenge and would go see the movie for inspiration, and it's just a batshit crazy awesome story. Great release, fucking music got stuck in my head for a couple days, great score, great performances, filled with a bunch of characters in the Japanese Yakuza movies that you've seen dozens of times. Like I said, this last week I watched a movie with a certain called A Certain Killer from Dai, which two of these people were in, and they did great performances there. But the one guy who plays the Yakuza guy is really thin, he's in A Certain Killer. I can't think of the character actor name. But he didn't live too long after this, and he looks real rough in this. He's like a skinny, gaunt guy, and he just looks really unhealthy in it. And I was like, I bet he was dying then, because he died a couple years later. But just excellent movie. I'd really recommend checking this one out. 1977, the last Yakuza movie that Kinji Fukasaku made, for good reason. But man, it's one of his best that I've seen. And I've seen a handful. I've seen the New Battles. I believe he did those. And I've seen Cops and Thugs. I just seen like a slew of his movies. But I love his work, man. He's did some horror films too, like Crest of Betrayal. And they're not really horror, but they have horror things in there and stuff. And Virus from 1980. Just great director. Okay, guys, the next one here is another box set. Now, I'm just going to cover one title every week, and it's not really a huge set, but it's 2 discs, 3 movies. The first one up is, this is Super Spies and Secret Lies, and 3 undercover classics from Shaw Brothers. The Golden Buddha, 1967, of course, the Shaw Brothers flick. After, the James Bond kind of run, they were super popular, so we had a bunch of spy movies from, Italy and Greece, and, of course, Shaw Brothers had to get down there and make their couple, too. So, The Golden Buddha, man, this one, I first admit that I do not love the spy genre, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not the biggest Bond fan. Not that I dislike them, I haven't seen that many, but I've seen a lot of, like, rip-offs of the Bond movies, and I'm just not a huge fan of them. Especially, like, something like Assassination Skybolt is terrible. But, and it's just hard to capture me. But this one I popped in, and it was fast-paced, it was silly, it was goofy, it was more playful, and I got into it pretty quick. So basically what we have here is a couple old friends run into each other on an airplane. I think they're going to Taiwan. One is going to Taiwan, and the other's going somewhere else for business. They have very similar briefcases. You know where this is going. The classical switcheroo. I got his briefcase, and he got mine, yada, yada, yada. The one friend says he's going to meet his brother and sister and then whatever in Taiwan. But there's a holdover on the plane. He has to get off. The one guy going on the business trip, he gets off, looks up his buddy because that's what he said he'd do when he got there a week later. after business trips were done, realizes his friend's been murdered. He actually had what the bad guys are looking for in the suitcase. What it is, it's led by this evil guy who's all in gold and completely ridiculous, kind of a villain in a Bond movie. And he's after him because he has this thing called the Golden Buddha, and it is given to all three of the siblings. They each have a piece of this Golden Buddha, which each carries a part of the coordinates to some sort of hidden treasure. So these bad guys are chasing them throughout the whole movie. Our lead here, luckily, knows judo, so he's tossing the guys around and lots of fights. Some of the fight choreographing is not that convincing. It's not that great, you know. It's not on the level of the typical Shaw Brothers movies where you see either swordplay or you see the hand-to-hand stuff or whatnot. It's not your typical great Hong Kong fight stuff. Some of it's fine, some of it's cool, it's entertaining, it's silly. When they're on trains, there's obviously like a rear projection kind of style thing, or just like a set with a picture going in the back. It's not rear projection, but you know what I mean. You could tell they're just in a train car, it's not moving, and it's just kind of a same picture going by and by and by and stuff like that. But that's fun stuff. There's of course a bunch of baddies that are trying to figure it out. Any means necessary, a sexy seductress. Is she the sister? Is she not the sister? You know the answer. But at the very end, we realize that some people are not as who they appear to be, and some twist and all that kind of stuff, and who's going to find the treasure, all that. It's entertaining. It's kind of a love story. I like the ending. Overall, enjoyable movie, The Golden Buddha. It has a commentary by Mike Leader and Army Venema, which is a good one, because these guys are so, they have so much information because they actually lived in Hong Kong and all these kind of things like that, so they can like bring up stuff that a lot of the other commentators can't. They just know shorthand with all this stuff and the martial arts and everything. Michael Leader was a martial artist, so that's always a good combo with historical facts and just things like that. And they know all the actors in here, and they have fun with this commentary. At one point, somebody's introduced as the King of Swing, so they're not without humor. But yeah, just a good title in here, and I was happy, pleasantly surprised. Not my favorite genre, but I'm willing to give anything a chance, and I enjoyed this one. This is from Eureka Films, and this is Super Spies and Secret Lies, the first film, The Golden Buddha, 1967, recommended. That's right, we're hopping into something different, something ridiculous, something fun. 1989. Vinegar Syndrome Archive Collection here. Crack House. It just tells you right what the fuck it is, by the director of Despa. Also, I think from 1999, 1990, aka Witch Bitch. So you know what you're fucking getting into here, right? Anytime you start off with from the director of Witch Bitch, you know you're in for a great title. Witch Bitch or Despa is an absolute ridiculously, amazingly fun movie. And Crack House is the same, although it shouldn't be fun. I'm going to be honest, watching this, I was like, oh boy, this is just fucking rough. And not like it's poorly made, it's just exploitative as shit. And like I said, this is just an exploitation movie through and through, but at the same time, you're like, there's some truth here. Maybe you can learn a couple lessons, but it's just nasty. So we have kind of this this young girl who lives in the hood with her struggling mom, and she's her mom's an addict, and this girl's dating this really nice kind of is it a Puerto Rican gang or a Mexican gang? I can't 100% remember. But this guy who's not, he used to be in the gang, but now he's turning his life around. He wants to go in the Air Force, and these two seem like genuinely great kids. They're just great kids in a bad situation, in a bad neighborhood where there's a lot of drugs and there's a lot of gangs and whatnot. And one day, this former gangbanger, his cousin gets killed, so he decides to sign up with the gang, and he has this elaborate giant shootout with this other gang. The other gang is absolutely ridiculous too. It's like the African American gang, and it just, the dialogue when they meet and they have this street fight is just like intense, very late 80s, bullshit kind of stuff. But yeah, they have this awesome, amazing shootout, which is really well done, good action. A lot of people are getting shot. I was just like, oh boy, we're in for something kind of special treat. But after that, he goes to jail, but he realizes, he's like, I can find you guys the leader of the crack house too. The police officer here, the detective Richard Roundtree, Shaft himself, blaxploitation, great actor from Q, The Winged Serpent, and a million other movies. Maniac Cop, love Richard Roundtree. He's great in this. He's got that kind of, I'm an old cop, I'm a veteran cop, but I'm a good cop, I'm a good guy kind of deal. Good performance in here, like him. He has a partner who's absolutely ridiculous, just always constantly, just like, he has that face and that attitude. He's like, I don't really give a shit. Just older white guy. He's like, I don't give a fuck what happens. But it's just those two next to each other is very funny. So he kind of has to infiltrate this crack house at the very end. And the kind of big crime boss is Jim Brown in a scary fucking performance. Love Jim Brown ever since I seen him in The Dirty Dozen when I was like 10. And he's great in this too. Jim Brown also in The Running Man and a million other movies too. But he's really intense in this, and he's just like beating basically women he's made like crack prostitutes, and he's like beating them, and it's fucked. It's really fucked up. And like there's a lot of sleazy characters and just trashy stuff and drug use, and it's just a sleazy late 80s LA kind of lost, like a California movie. I loved it, man. I know this. People watch this and I'm like, this is making my stomach turn. And there was points where I was like, oh, I can't believe they're doing. Like I was shocked, like that nervous laugh when you just like, it's so funny that somebody made this and it's so intense and crazy that you're just holy shit. There's a lot of nervous laughter watching Crack House. Probably the same nervous laughter I'd have if I was in an actual crack house. But this is really good shit, man. I like this movie. Recommended highly, very entertaining. Roundtree's great. Brown's scary as shit too. The main lead performances aren't the best, but they're not horrible either. The mom is unintentionally funny at times. She's like, nah, and I was just like it was one of those kind of deals. But it's more so like maybe it's just the editing, like you're staying on somebody too long, and it's just a weird cut or whatever. But there's a couple scenes that made me laugh. And of course, there's tons of sleaze and nudity, and there's inserts that are clearly different actress and breasts and stuff. It's a trashy movie, so be warned. It's everything you think it is. Crack House. For as far as the special features are concerned, you have Shooting Crack House, interview with the cinematographer, Gang Territory, interview with Greg Thompson, Hitting the Streets, locations of Crack House. Awesome movie by Michael Fischa. Fischa, and the other actors in here, I should mention Angel Tompkins. The actress in here was like a model, but I can't think of, is it Claude R. Jones? A familiar character actor, really good performance as a drug pusher, kind of young guy. He's great in this, got a great look about him too, and good performance for sure. But this one's overall good. I enjoy it. It is a little sloppy at times, like tying up loose ends, like I'm leaving, or I ended up in prison too, like that kind of shit. You're like, come on. But overall, it's too enjoyable to care. Okay, next up is from Vinegar Syndrome, proper, and this is The Possession of Joel Delaney. This is a 4K 1972. I had never seen The Possession of Joel Delaney, but this is probably the third or fourth time, and I bought it. Now it's time to watch it. You see, I buy every horror movie to watch them later, and I actually do watch them. Just takes some time. But The Possession of Joel Delaney, 72. This is a possession movie made before The Exorcist. I mean, there's some Exorcist like possession movies before The Exorcist, but it's so close. It's kind of wild. It stars Shirley MacLaine and Perry King. Now, this is early for Perry King. It says introducing Perry King, but he was in Slaughterhouse-5, which I did cover on here a while ago. Before this, based off the classic novel. Great book. Interesting book, But, so Perry King is in here, and he plays this character named Joel. And he's kind of his sister's older, Shirley MacLaine, and she kind of treats him like a child. Everybody seems to treat him like a child. He's got a bizarre thing. In the very beginning of the movie, actually the opening, I could have sworn that they were a couple, and she was kind of like this more sophisticated woman taking this young street kid or younger kid as a boyfriend, because they have that relationship, and there's definitely huge incestuous undertones in this entire. I don't even say undertones. It's right in your face. There's nothing hidden here. But the first maybe 5 minutes after you realize they're brother and sister, you're like, oh, because you think they're a couple, and then some young girl walks in, you're like, oh, there's some tension there, but oh boy, it gets really kind of dirty in that aspect. But as it progresses, we realize that Joel's not exactly right. They definitely have some family trauma, some family issues. Within the first 15 minutes, I was like, oh, well, this happened to their mom, and I was dead on. You can tell. You've seen enough of these movies where trauma is definitely a baseline or a backdrop for a lot of the characters, but it's not too forceful or anything like that. The performances are really good, and over time, we start to learn that Joel is possibly possessed by a friend of his who is a Puerto Rican guy. And this guy is possibly wanted for some really grotesque murders. We do see some aftermath of a couple murders in here, and they're nasty. The first one you see is kind of shocking because you don't exactly expect to see something that gnarly or disgusting in this movie. I was just like, oh, the head doesn't look necessarily great, but the way it's portrayed, the way it's shot, the way you look at it, the way it's just there, really effective stuff. I thought that the acting performance is really good. Now, Perry King at one point starts to have to give this Hispanic accent, and it is cheesy at times and everything, and it's just like a hard performance to do. And I do think it's the correct way to go about it, but also at the same time, there's no way around it that's not going to be a little cringe or something like that, just because you know who Perry King is and him doing it. But I've always loved Perry King ever since I saw him in the class of 1984 as a wee lad. He's excellent in that as the teacher. He's in stuff like Andy Warhol's Bad, which is a great movie. I really want to see Bad on a 4K, man. That's a fucking awesome movie. And then just a slew of other things, like he's in The Killing Hour and Lipstick, which are movies I covered on here. He's good in this, and it's an early performance. It's a vulnerable performance, and the director and the special feature said, I hired Perry King because all the guys came in and they had this tough guy machismo, and he didn't. He had vulnerability about him. He had this childlike thing about him, vulnerability, and that's what this character needed. And he's right. It's based on a book. There is a special feature on here where I'll see who the person who dives into the special feature actually is. I want to give them their name. Okay, we have Twin Spirits author and film historian Kelly Goodner on the adaptation for the book to film. Talks about the differences and says this movie is actually pretty well done considering the fact how much they cut out of the book and didn't throw it in your face. Because you see a lot of this stuff when they're saying in the book, you're like, yeah, that seems right. Yeah, that's right. That's correct. And like, I never, while watching this, was like, oh, that didn't. You know, you fill in. You don't need all these questions answered. You're pretty much, yeah, it's kind of like that or kind of like this. You can kind of get it. If I had to compare this to two movies that were made later, I would compare it to Retribution from Severin Films from '87, where a character is possessed to carry out some kind of like revenge crimes by, and I also, which is kind of has that kind of like, I think a different religious aspect to. I think the character is kind of practicing some sort of stranger religion comparatively to what Western people typically know, and The Believers, which is also, I believe, a New York movie where we kind of are more into like the, I don't think it's necessarily voodoo, but somewhere along those kind of lines. But yeah, we do have this aspect of classism going amongst this movie too. We have like of course Shirley MacLaine comes from more of a rich background, or she married into riches and divorced, so she still has this high class mentality, while Joel seems abandoned and stuff like that and lives on the Lower East Side kind of deal. There's definitely a classism thing. We see these two different kind of groups of people intermingling, and there's a point when she like runs for her life when she's in like Spanish Harlem. I think that's where she's at, but anyways, it's like a place where she's not familiar with. Geography in New York City is not my strong point, guys. I've only been to New York City for about 5 seconds when I was a wee lad. But overall, I thought this was really good. You know, and at first I was like uncertain. It's one that has passed me by. That's kind of a semi-classic film, but finally diving in, it's exciting. It's exciting to watch these kind of like mid-tier classics that you still somehow missed. You know, I've not seen everything. I've watched a bunch of crazy weird movies. Sometimes you miss the mid-tier or the classics, but I think I see most of the big classics from certain periods. But some of the mid-tier classics I definitely missed. I bought them. I was ready to watch them, but I finally did the dive here. You know, The Possession of Joel Delaney on 4K. Looks gorgeous, sounds gorgeous. I should also mention the commentary by Sam Deegan is also really good. She does a great job. I enjoyed that as well. And also the interview with the director was also interesting because he's not a horror guy. He was born in India, moved to Britain, graduated from like Cambridge. So he's like a highly educated guy, didn't like to do horror movies, cast certain people in certain roles for certain reasons. Just a different, you know, a lot of the best horror movies, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, aren't from horror directors. They're not from, or they're from people who are forced into horror that had to make horror their whole life. You know what I mean? If you make one horror film, it's usually pretty fucking good. If you make 1,000 horror movies, you know, you have a couple crap in there. But, you know, for the most part, I think this is a really solid horror film. A lot of people don't love this one. You know, it's got mixed reviews. But yeah, I could see it having mixed reviews. But I enjoyed it. Good stuff. The Possession of Joel Delaney. Yep, this is where I kind of ruin some of my credibility here, if I haven't already. I ruin it every week. I talk, open my mouth, a little bit of credibility goes out there. What the fuck? Do I have credibility? What the hell is even credibility? Anyways, this is what I'm just going to talk about because I was, Saturday, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to watch something silly, something fun. I needed to follow up Crack House with something even more ridiculous than Crack House. So what I did was I started watching Scary Movie. I don't have a copy of it, you know, I was watching it streaming, but Scary Movie from 2000, directed by Keenen, Ivory, Wayans, starring two of the Wayans brothers, Shawn Wayans and Marlon Wayans. This is an absolutely ridiculous parody movie, of course, in line with something like Airplane. But, you know, I guess it's more something with like Student Bodies or The Pandemonium or a lot of movies that came out in 81, 82, those kind of silly, you know, spoofy horror films. Scary Movie, man, it's such a product of its time from 2000. Boy, it has a lot of familiar faces in there. Anna Faris. There's also weird cameos and stuff. But Kurt Fuller's in here. David Sheraton's in here. Rick Dukeman's in here. And the Wayans brothers, like I said, some other people. It's obviously parroting stuff like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, Scream 2, all that kind of stuff here. So, yeah, these movies are a joke a minute. Not every joke lands. Most of the time they don't. But when they do, you're cracking up. It's on PC humor. It's dated humor. It's offensive humor. It's offensive in the aspect that it's trying to offend everybody every second. For example, Shawn Wayans plays a character who's a closet homosexual and he's constantly molesting every guy he comes in contact with. There's a million gay jokes. Obviously not going to be that funny. There's a trans joke in here that's going to be incredibly outdated, which These movie is so offensive, I can't help but laugh. I'm a product of that time. I know this shit is not. It's not like I'm gonna walk around and do this. Also, it's a comedy movie from 2000. You realize how raunchy and trashy all those movies were that you grew up with, and your sense of humor is just completely warped. Like when I watched Porky's, I was like, yeah, I enjoyed it. I shouldn't have. I get it, but they're products of their time, and you have to hold them in their standard of their time. There's tons of jokes in here. There's Marlon Wayans is definitely that kind of character that's like in here always smoking weed shorty. He's definitely that, like, anybody who's watching this is probably a lot of people probably in the crowd half probably smoking weed or whatever. Just that idea that you got to get your kind of like weed humor in there, your half baked kind of style humor in there, and I think they do that well. The problem with Scary Movie is the first two acts are fun. They're goofy. They're following the plot. There's a lot of funness in it, and goofiness, and raunchiness, and trashiness. A lot of one-lining jokes. But the third act, it just doesn't really. It starts to lose its steam for me, and I'm kind of getting bored. I think they used all their good jokes, and it's just kind of like a lot of the same repetitive stuff, and more story than there is jokes at that point because they have to force that end storyline. I absolutely love Rick Dukeman in here. He's a great comedian from stuff like The Burbs and Little Monsters, and he's just, I love him. I love him in here, and he plays the father of our main character, Anna Faris, who's pretty fun and goofy in this movie. But he plays that kind of the father, and he's a drug dealer, and he's just always talking to her how sweet she is, but he's also talking about horrible shit. But one of the best gags in here is everybody gets murdered in the house, and the cops show up, Kurt Fuller, from another character actor in A Million Things, and he shows up, and she's like, they killed everyone, everybody's dead. And Kurt Fuller's like, all right, come on. And then Rick Dukeman realizes he's a drug dealer. He's got a bunch of drugs in the house. Like, and the sick bastard planted drugs all over the house to try to, like, throw that in there. Kurt Fuller's like, all right, come on, Cindy. It's just so funny. And also there's a great joke with Kurt Fuller showing her, like, bathing pictures of himself in a bikini. He's like, this one? Well, am I looking at that one again? He plays it completely straight. It's fucking brilliant. Kurt Fuller in stuff like Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. He's in The Running Man. He's in Miracle Mile. He's just always so fucking funny. Because he has that deadpan. He's got that great voice. He's a big, tall, lanky guy. He's just fucking good at it. Rick Dukeman's good at it. They both crack me the fuck up. Keenen Ivory Wayans has a cameo in it. He's also the director. Like, kind of in the vein of I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. Remember that movie? Which was always a fun blaxploitation parody. I enjoy that one as well. But, I think the first two Scary Movies had a lot of good jokes, a lot of stupid shit, a lot of outdated, offensive humor. That if you want to kind of take a walk down memory lane and think, man, we were fucking nuts. And it was funny, but also offensive. It's in the South Park line, right? A lot of people think, have a mindset that if it offends everybody or it's nobody, it's not taking prisoners with anybody, then it's all right. I can see, I'm a person that doesn't really get offended by film, period. I don't believe in censorship, period, when it comes to that kind of stuff, especially like entertainment media. Like, you don't like it, don't watch it. I know, like, there's a lot of shit that I don't watch because I won't like it. But it is what it is. I know people find it disgusting and offensive. You don't have to watch it. That's why there's ratings and shit. But it's a goofy, silly, crappy. It's kind of crappy. Dave Sheridan, I gotta mention Doofy. Doofy's a infamous character. Sherry O'Terry's in here too. They spoofed the Blair Witch, but fucking Dave Sheridan in this movie as Doofy, which is an outdated joke too. Instead of Dewey, he plays a mentally handicapped cop. The vacuum gag. Cleaning my room, Ma. Oh man. Just this brings up. I laugh at almost everything. It's a funny movie. It's a goofy movie. It's terrible in a lot of ways, but it's enjoyable. Just check out Scary Movie if you haven't. I mean, I can't believe this fucker's 25 years old. 25 years old. This movie came out when I was 14 years old, and me and my cousin watched it a million times. But so it's embedded in my head. I said $1, bitch. But Scary Movie. It is what it is, man. Okay, we only have one from 1982, and it's a fucking doozy. Psychic TV, First Transmission. Now, this is in 4 parts. It is 4 hours and like 30 minutes long. It is experimental, avant-garde, disturbing shit. And watching this, I'm going to be honest, I didn't expect something like this from 1982. I didn't expect it to be disturbing. And I don't think that this was widely known at the time of its release. It's like underground books, underground things like that where you could order it from. And it's like a lot of people that are from like a weird kind of collective, some punk rock artists, some people that made avant-garde, weird, transgressive shit. Oh, fuck, man. This is weird. I can't really give this a recommend because a lot of it is incredibly tedious, but Now I watched it out of order on accident because they were all mixed up, which makes it even more disjointed, which makes it worse. I will admit, I think so. But then after I got them back in the order, and I was like, oh, this is supposed to be first, much better. So the first transmission, it kind of pops up like it's found footage, like this is police footage, whatever. We don't know where it came from. I'm like, wait, this is way fucking ahead of its time for what it is. I know we have the Cannibal Holocaust before 1980, but 1982, this kind of aspect, and it's like, man, this is so fucked up. Parts of this remind me of, like August Underground in 1982. It was shot at Super 8, made to look even worse. Some of it's documentary footage, some of it's real life footage they shot for the movie. So in the beginning, we kind of followed this group of young kids. Man, they got to be kids, but they got to be late teens because there's nudity and everything in there. But a lot of nudity, and it looks like, I don't know. At first I was like, oh, they're doing heroin or something, because I know sometimes people shoot up and then take the drugs out, push the blood back in, whatever, I did grow up in, the 2000s and forward. There's a lot of heroin use from people back then. But, push the drugs back in and stuff like that. So I didn't know what the fuck they were doing. The footage looks bad. There's no real dialogue, but it looks like some sort of blood fetish cult thing where they're getting high, bunch of young men, nude, kind of jerking off and shit. I was like, what the fuck is this? And there's a lot of footage of them filming the streets. And I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know where I am. And it was very disjointed. And you're intrigued to find out what the fuck is the story. But it's also disgusting because you're like, what is real? What is not real? And this movie's not like it's broad a bunch of information on it, right? So you read August Underground, Fred Vogel's gone over the entire history of the fucking thing. This movie, you're like, there's not much to be found about fucking psychic TV first transmission. So the second part is really grueling. And I accidentally started with this part, and I got mad. I was just like, I have no context, know what the fuck this is. Just, I guess I'm over it. But, man, it's just, started off with, it's like a weird fetish sex porn thing with somebody with their genital cut off. And, I think that part's real. I don't fucking know. Like I said, I don't know what's real or fake, which is what adds to the insanity. So I know somebody will probably comment knowing more information about this and stuff like that that's deep dived into it. I tried to find information, couldn't really find much. But there's this weird kind of blood fetish porn thing with enema, blood enema and shit. And it's just unpleasant and disgusting, and cutting, a lot of cutting in it, I think maybe for real. And it's just unpleasant as fuck, and it was one of the most disturbing, disgusting things I've seen in a long fucking time. And I used to watch a lot of films like that, the disturbing, remember that phase in YouTube where they're like, oh, disturbing, taboo, fucked up shit, we watch a lot of nasty shit, but I don't like when it gets real. I'm not a fan of the real. I'm not a fan of fetish films masqueraded as horror films, like Lady in the Sea of Blood, that Japanese movie. It's a horror film. It's it's not a fucking horror film. It's a fetish film. And I remember hearing podcasts, I think it was, I don't remember what he was on. Jonathan Doe has a podcast, but he's also been on Sick on Cinema, and he talk about the Japanese films with the scat porn, and people are watching it as a horror film. He's like, this is just some fucking porn film that some guy's jerking off to in Japan, and everybody over here watching these horror films, and it's the same kind of thing, right? And the Lucifer Valentine movies kind of bleed into that too. It's like, we're watching fetish films at this fucking point, right? And it's like, it's a horror film. It's there's some gore in there, but you're getting off on the puke, and I don't want to watch it anymore. Not to mention the backstories of those fucking movies. What the fuck's, going on in that. But it's just, this movie, the second part, was really fucked up and nasty and crazy. And then kind of third part, if I'm not mistaken, mixing these two up. But it gets really, one of the parts is just a lot of Jim Jones talking and distorted video footage. You're watching, 22B Scramble trying to see a titty or something when you're 10. That's this kind of deal, and you hear Jim Jones talking and footage like that. It's that's kind of at the time, it was probably pretty, oh, wow, that's very crazy and offensive, but it's hack shit now at this point. I think it is, whatever. It's just for an hour of that, it's that's enough. And the ending ends with somebody kind of masturbating with what appears to be a giant millipede or something like that, which is it's here's your reward for sitting through that weird shit. Now here's somebody masturbating with a millipede or some sort of shit, fucking shit. And you're all right. And then the last part, I don't even recall exactly what the last part is. So it's just this weird kind of crazy mixture of batshit shit. Some of it's just kind of supposed to fuck you up, put on the background. But the first two parts, I think, are the parts that really kind of pull you in, because you see that story and you're like, what the fuck is happening? And then you see that and you're just like, boy, it's crazy. It's a fucking nuts. Not for everybody, man. If you're I want to see something really nasty and disturbing and intriguing in the same sense, the mystery behind it is also part of it, right? That you're like, oh boy, because it's when I was younger, I always chase it, right? You see something like Cannibal Holocaust, so what's next? So I'm in behind, so what's next? Now I'm like, I'm good. I went as far as I want to go. But then when you're doing all these years, I didn't expect that something like this would pop up so early in 1982, and I'm like, holy fuck, you know? I mean, you watch the guinea pig movies, and those are like, yeah, they're crazy, but it's not that bad. But this is just like, I don't know shit about it. It looks dirty and decorated. It looks fucked up, man. But nasty ass movie. Psychic TV, first transmission, 4.5 hours long of tedious hell. But is it worth watching? Maybe. Last up is a Patreon pick. I think it's 1993. It's an Umbrella release here of Bad Boy Bubby. Never saw Bad Boy Bubby. Had the old fucking DVD. It's a movie. This is the second time I bought Bad Boy Bubby. And boy, was I happy with it, man. This one opens up. It's an Australian movie directed by a guy from Amsterdam, a Dutch guy. And he moved to Australia when he was younger and made this film. And boy, this is fucking nuts. So I really didn't know what to expect. I started this movie. I heard it was really disturbing and weird, but the fans of this range from, you know, people that love disturbing movies to like filmmakers that are like highly respected and things like that. So I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm getting into. And the first like 10, 15 minutes of the film, I was like, I'm not enjoying this. We have a cat that seems to be getting tortured. I know that they said there was humane people on the set, humane society, and any feral cat has to be put down in Australia. But I still do not like witnessing a cat die in any aspect, or a dead cat on screen. It just seemed tasteless and trashy to me, but it is what it is. Get over that part, you'll be fine with the rest of the movie, and you'll be rewarded for watching something that's pretty good film. I think so. I really liked it. So Bad Boy Bubby is somebody that is kept in isolation, similar to the movie that I watched not too long ago, that Paul Bartel movie where the kids are in isolation, or Blast from the Past. You know, these movies where we have a character who's been completely isolated for so long, they don't know how to interact with human beings. But Bad Boy Bubby seems to be some sort of on a special scale, like he mimics people. He'll learn human behavior and do that. So his mother's the only one there. She has a completely unhealthy, disgusting, incestuous relationship with her son. The father's not in the picture. One day the father returns, and he is a piece of shit. He's a drunkard, he's an asshole, and he fits in right with the mother. So they treat Bad Boy Bubby really bad one day, and he does an unspeakable act involving some, plastic wrap, and he leaves the house. He's thrown into the world without knowing anything, kind of, like learning and everything, and he comes across all sorts of crazy events, a robbery in a wheelchair right away, and he stumbles into these all parts, and you don't know Bad Boy Bubby's intent. You don't know what's going to happen to him. So there's a constant suspense throughout the entire movie. In the first act, for sure, the first couple acts, because you're like, is something bad going to happen to him? Do I want him to be safe? Is he going to do something really violently disgusting? But as he progresses, he meets all sorts of different people. Some people try to help him. Some people treat him like shit. He gets beat up by a cop. He gets thrown in all these different areas and everything like that. He meets a band, and that plays into something really great. And he starts to learn these different phrases from people that he picked up. And sometimes they get him in trouble. Sometimes they help him. But there's a brilliant scene where, he kind of learns all these things what his mother told him that's still all embedded in his head. And I don't want to spoil the entire movie, but he's staring at the landscape with somebody, and it's a beautiful sunset in front of a factory that's really dirty and all this, like, kind of, I guess you'd say like a air breeze coming in, like maybe possibly warm, and it's from the factory and everything like that. And he says it's beautiful, and she says something along the lines of, "It's all chemicals, Bubby. It's killing us. It's killing us." And he says something that he learned from his mom. In an aspect, mixing it with other people, that have said things. And he says, if the poison don't kill you, then God will. And I was just like, that's so profane coming from that kind of character, and just picking up these things in society. What a strange mind pulls from society is also in genius in a way, right? But just loved this movie, man. I thought it was great. I thought the performance from Bubby was fantastic. I just thought it was funny, but also heartbreaking, but interesting. It's just a great movie. Interesting movie for sure. Christ, kid, you a weirdo. When he said weirdo, it reminded me of Hugh Grant and Heretic singing Creep. It's very similar. I think that's just the British Australian way they say weirdo. But yeah, love this movie. Great stuff. There's an interview with the lead actor in here, and he stopped in. I don't remember what he's doing, performing a play, and they were in a small town, stopping off, and he was having a drink, and somebody said, "You're Bad Boy Bubby, right?" And he started talking to this couple, and they said, "That's the most popular movie in this town." And he's like, "Oh, cool." And he made a joke about something, and they were dead serious. They said, "That's a real Australian family there." and it just was very unsettling. And there's a lot more truth to maybe this kind of than something else. He's sitting there thinking that he's an outrageously weird character living an outrageously weird life, but these people are like, it's pretty normal. It's a pretty normal movie, life. But then also the director basically wrote this for years, and he would just find weird shit that happened and write it down, and eventually this is what came through. Is Bad Boy Bubby. Fantastic movie. The director did a lot of films, a lot of different films, but recommended for sure. Bad Boy Bubby. Looked good too. It looks great where it's shot. Locations are interesting. Just a very, very human movie in a fucking craziest way. All right, let's get into these questions, comments, and concerns. Nick Mua from Belgium. It's truly a magnificent film. Don't torture a duckling. Easily one of Fulci's best features. I'm so glad you introduced me to this film and to Mr. Fulci's body of work. I hope you enjoy it in 4K. I do. Nightmares is a little neat anthology horror. I watched it for Halloween a few years back. Good times, especially the Christina Rain segment. I do miss the reviews with Jeremy joins in. You guys' energy is so different, but I understand his reluctance with all those crazy fans asking sassy questions about slutty tank tops straight out of a horror flick. Haha. Yeah. Don't take it. Does it take long to figure out who the killer is in a gialli? I don't know. Sometimes I don't really pay that much attention, and I'm pleasantly surprised. Sometimes they're so batshit crazy that you're like, how the fuck? But it's hard to say. Would you rather play the killer or a cop in a giallo? Why not both? Why can't the cop be the killer? No, but depends who wrote it. Depends who the killer is. If the killer's a crazy one, I'd like to play the killer. But I'll do the cop. You know what? I take the cop this time. Till next week, God willing, cheers, Dave. Thank you. And don't call me Shirley. Why are you wearing your preteen sister bralette? Jesus fucking Christ, bro. Dude, I told you because it was wash day. But maybe next, I'll find a tighter shirt. I'm just going to wear a bra. If you wanted me to wear a bra, you should have said something. This comment smells of death. Razu Ikawara. I can't say that right now. Ichikawa. That's not right. Star of a certain killer was on course to be one of the Japan's great actors, but cancer, which went undiagnosed until it was terminal, struck him down at the age of 37. Terrible. Hopefully, this actor, starring Sleepy Eyes, the Death series, will get picked up by release for someone. It's a cool Chabara franchise that sometimes drifts into horror territory. Thanks for another great show, Dave. Thank you. Tipsy Bones. Hey, will you be picking up the Shoestring Horrors Volume 1 from TerraVision? Have you seen or heard of any of those titles in Volume 1? I did pre-order that sucker. Phantom Brother, think I've seen or heard of. I feel like I watched it years ago. I think it was SOV or was shot on some low-grade film and edited on tape, but I think I might have watched that years ago. The film Beware, I do not know. I do not know Beware. And I've covered Basement Jack fucking 15 years ago on my channel, so I bet if you search Mrparka Basement Jack, there'll be a review from a long time ago. But I did pick it up, mostly for the Phantom Brother one, and Beware's 99, so I'm into that too. Jason's Chill Share, you're fire. Thank you. Binary God, love that body. Thank you. Rob Yabaz, I love nightmares. Bring me on again in 6 months. We'll do. We still have to do Amityville 2, The Possession. Angela 150. I love Don't Torture a Duckling. One of my few favorite Fulci films. Great review as always. Thank you. Papa Carly. Damn, Mr. Muscles. Thank you. See, you got one bad comment out of all those. But mostly good. Appreciate it. So, you know what? I should do the video changeover, but I'm a lazy boy today, so we're just going to do it like this. This is a Vinegar Syndrome order. I got Possession of Joel Delaney with that order as well. But first up for Vinegar Syndrome is The Carpenter, starring Wings Hauser. Yes, I have seen The Carpenter. It's been a long time. I think it's late 80s, early 90s. The movie's absolutely ridiculous. Wings Hauser's like a ghost carpenter, and he's like, man, it's gonna be done. And he just kills people. Then we have White Cannibal Queen, which is the 1980 flick, I think, the one with Al Cliver, and it's got a couple gory moments, directed by Jess Franco. This ain't a great movie, but hey, I'm a sucker for cannibal movies, and I'm a sucker for the 80s horror films. But if you're ever like, I want to watch some Jess Franco cannibal movie that he didn't give a shit about but somehow still watchable, then White Cannibal Queen is for you. AK, I think, Cannibals, or is that a different one? Then we have The Mansion of Madness, which is a Mexican flick, if I believe so, or maybe it's Spanish. I think it's Mexican, because the director is Juan Lopez Montezuma, who did another movie that I cannot think about which he did. I want to say he did Mary, Mary, Bloody Mary, which is an interesting movie. But this guy is a pretty prolific Mexican director, or popular, and I've wanted to see The Mansion of Madness for years. Love that cover. I have the old Mondo Macabro DVD, but now I'm going to watch it in style. This is Vinegar Syndrome Labs. Happy to have this. This one excites me. Then we have The Joy of Sex. This is how do you guys do this one? The sub label here, cinematography. Or cinematography, or just graphe. I'm not 100% sure. I've heard people pronounce it a million different ways. So, anyways, this one sounded interesting enough. I think I picked this one up because it actually had a nice cast, and I saw that it had a couple of people from the one girl from class of 1984, the punk rocker. But it also has got Ernie Hudson and Christopher Lloyd, which is the batshit crazy combo on there. But Joy of Sex. Then we have Rot from Saturn's Core, classic SOV movie by Marcus Cook. Friend of mine growing up, and actually he sent me this movie years and years and years ago. Do I have Rot sitting here up there? This VHS tape he sent me when I was just a wee lad, and we used to exchange tapes all the fucking time. Yeah, I'm gonna grab it because I can see it right there. But here we go. Marcus sent me this tape personally. It's like made to cut out and everything like that. Rot is just a crazy gory movie. He wrote it down there himself. But yeah, very cool. Good guy. Saturn's Core's good label. Has a bunch of shit on there. It's got all these special features on here too. It's got a couple of his shorts, Lunch Meat and White Massacre from 92 and 89. Very cool. And then we have Deadly Obsession, the films of Bill Reeves. This is from VHS Shitfest. What else do we got here? So, Bill Reeves. So, all the movies on here. The Gut Wrencher, Who Shot Me, Mean BR, Ghost and Angel Stories from Around the World, Terminal Targets, The Card Game, Ghost Stories from Indonesia, Deadly Obsession, The Crown Jewel of Indonesia, Trail of Terror. There we go. And then last, Two Faces of Katô, who's a director I've covered a couple movies on here not too long ago. And this is By a Man's Face Shall You Know Him, and I, the Executioner. So, very cool. Love my Japanese cinema. And this is from Film Movement, so I picked that up. But, yeah, that's the video. Let's get out of here, guys. Alright, guys, thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one.